Charlie Parsons for Boxing Social and Association with William Hill and Empire Fight Store. You've got a smile on your face. It's always nice to speak to you, Skye. I suppose, firstly, how's things?
Really good. Really, really good. I'm happy. I'm back in camp, loving life. No, I'm really good.
Before we talk about anything fight related, still boxing related, obviously, but when I spoke to you in Dublin, you were at like a mental crossroads.
Mm.
You didn't know what was next for you. And as much as, you've got to make decisions in life, it still would have been tough on you, right? And it would have been something that you would have gone back and forth for so long. It's all you've put your time and effort into, you've been perfecting this craft for ages. Why have you made the decision to stick with the pros?
Ah, it definitely was a really, really hard decision. But it was more just like something inside me. It's so hard to explain, but basically when I turned pro, obviously I've always said I was 100% always, my plan was to go back to Paris 2024 Olympics. Obviously, my Olympics was kind of cut short, maybe controversially. It was a close decision, but obviously a lot of people thought I won and was deserving of a medal. So for me, it was really, really hard to just kind of let go of that and move on. But obviously, I've had such a whirlwind year and a half as a pro. I'm absolutely loving what I'm doing. I feel like I've made such good momentum. I'm in a really good place. Only 7 fights in, so for me, I started to feel like I was almost convincing myself that I still wanted to do the Olympic route because that's what I always wanted to do, instead of just kind of accepting how I was really feeling about it. Um, I went and did obviously a couple of the international training camps with the amateur teams. And yeah, something just wasn't sitting right. And I was actually back here at home in London watching, what show was it? New Orleans, maybe? It was
Hmm.
at like 2 a.m. And I was like on the edge of my seat watching the fights, getting so excited about it. And I just thought, this is me now. This is where I am. This is what I want. And I was thinking, I don't know when I'll fight pro next if I go down this route. And I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like how it sat. And every time I was having like a conversation with people about which way you're going to go, what are you going to do, the more I had kind of realized I didn't want to go down the Olympic route anymore. Um, and as soon as I sat there that early hours of the morning and was like, I'm I'm staying pro. I'm not doing it. And it was like this like weight just came off my chest and I just felt so happy and content in my decision, and I knew I was making the right decision because like every time I had said, no, I'm going to go do the Olympics, something just wasn't sitting right with me. And it wasn't until like I was just like, no, I'm 100% sure this is what I want to do. I want to stay pro. I want to focus on my career. I want to keep this momentum going. I want to fight for a world title in the next 8 months, maybe 8 to 12 months, we'll say. And yeah, I felt so much clarity, and I just felt like I was like straight onto Eddie and Frank. I want to fight ASAP. I'm ready. I'm back in camp. Let's go. So um yeah, no, I feel like I won't live in regret now. I know 100% that I made the right decision.
I want to go into your next fight and the exciting news that's on the way, and we will touch on all that.
Mhm.
It's more me, like from seeing boxing and seeing it at the pro level. It's very different in different countries, right?
Mhm.
Do you think maybe the reason that you felt the way you did is because you'd spent your whole life in Australia? In Australia, sort of amateur boxing almost is the pinnacle.
Mhm.
Professional boxing isn't as big over there. Do you feel like because that was what you I mean, growing up, did you ever have the dreams of being the most accomplished professional, or were your dreams just of being the amateur? And do you think maybe that's where the past you was probably overtaking the current you.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like that you got that to a T. I
Gee.
had no I honestly I had no plans in turning professional. Um,
This is it,
the
right? I
whole
find the
yeah,
dynamic is so, so different.
yeah. And I've just obviously I've had the most amazing, incredible journey already. Um, 3 fights in the UK, 3 fights in the US, a fight back home in Australia. Um, I think I'm in the top 6 across the board in all of the sanctioning bodies, and I just feel like I've got myself into such a good position. I absolutely love what I'm doing. And another big thing, I I didn't feel like I had changed my style that much. I thought like to go back to the amateurs, it wouldn't be like much of a change from what I was already doing, if that makes sense. Like a lot of people still say, "Oh, she boxes like an amateur, she fights like an amateur, she's got that amateur style, blah blah blah." But going back into the amateur camps, I cannot tell you how much I realized I actually have changed. And I just felt like maybe they are really small changes that most people wouldn't really notice. But for me, they were really big changes. And I just felt like, am I going to reverse and go back on a year and a half of work that we've put in the gym to get me to this point where I'm boxing professionally, to then go back on all of that for a year, to then have to spend another year or a year and a half getting back to that again when I come back over. So I just thought it's too much. It's not what I want anymore.
Just lastly on that, I know that you've just from social media, some of your best friends were in that sort of Aussie training squad. Do you think
Mm-hmm.
that also maybe played a little part? You thought that sort of you wanted to reunite with them a little bit. That was maybe all you knew before. I know that there's the independent, and at one point you just got to sort of do what's best for you. But do you think maybe you were clinging on to that aspect a little bit?
I think a little bit, like especially with Katie Parker, obviously. She's one of my best friends. We traveled the world together in the Australian team together since we were 15 years old. Obviously did the Commonwealth Games and Olympics together. So I think a part of me did want to have that, I guess, special reunion where we would go and do the Paris Olympics together. But um, yeah, I love the team environment. I love the training camps and stuff that come with the amateur teams. But yeah, it wasn't enough.
Well, shoulda, coulda, woulda to one side.
Yeah.
What you are going to do is you're going to stick in the professional ranks. Um,
Yeah.
and the world is your oyster. You just spoke to me. You said world titles within maybe 8 months. We
Mhm.
spoke obviously off the record, and I won't sort of disclose too much. I'll leave that to you. Can tell me as much info as you want to share. But in terms of your next fight, do you know when it'll be, what sort of level we're looking at opposition wise, and how that's going to transcend you to the step to the world honors?
So I'm really, really excited for this next fight. Obviously, I had been ordered by the WBC to fight for the interim title. Um, and kind of the word that I was getting back was that the champion wasn't really interested in the fight with me, and that she was going to have one more fight and then just vacate the belt. So we were, I guess, looking at other opponent options that were above me in the WBC rankings. Um, and since then, uh, Perez team has come back and said that they will fight me. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to go in as the challenger against the champion. I don't want to be fighting for vacant titles, and I feel like I'm going to earn more by fighting the champion and dethroning the champion. So, um, yeah, I'm up against Sabrina Perez as far as I know. Um, I'm waiting for the contract, but basically, I've been told to be ready for early September. Um, I don't know where yet, but I know that it is most likely going to be against the interim champion, Sabrina Perez, Argentinian. Um, been a pro for a long time, very, very experienced, professional. She's 18-1-1 is her record, and I think she is still having that one more fight before. our fight in September, which I think is supposed to be taking place this weekend. So potentially she'll be 19, 1-1 when we fight. So I think that is a nice step up in opposition for me going into my 8th fight. And I'm really, really excited for that challenge. I'm excited to be going in as the challenger against the champion. I'm coming to take what's mine and get myself into that mandatory position so I can dethrone other champions down the line.
We spoke before about sort of having difficulties with opponents. I reference and I remember it very clearly. What was a not a tough night in the office in the fact that you got the shutout victory, but you fought the girl with the most strange style ever. That was back in February, I believe. I mean, I bring it up now and you
Yeah.
look you want to cry. Do
It's a
you
repressed
feel
memory. Thanks,
do you
Charlie.
feel like in this fight here you will actually learn something because you are fighting what you expect. You know what I mean? You can get yourself up for it. In like before when we've seen you against some of these girls, it's probably not really gonna be what's gonna have to test you moving forward. You're not having to grit down. You're fighting
Mhm.
weird styles that aren't pro, that aren't amateur. They're just sort of there.
Yeah. No, I feel like most of my opponents have just kind of come in and survived. Um, so I'm excited to be going in against someone who's obviously she wants to keep her belt, so she's going to be coming to win, and I feel like that's where we're going to see the best me. I have always said that as well, but obviously she's a seasoned pro. She's done the rounds. She's been in the game for years, and she's got a really good record. So she's obviously coming to win, and I feel like that's where I'm going to see those openings and opportunities even more than I kind of have had the chance to in these first fights. So I'm very excited for that. Um, to be fair, there's not a lot of footage on her. I know she's a
Okay.
lot shorter than me, but on YouTube, literally, I think 8 years ago is the last fight that I can actually
As long
find
as
footage of.
that.
Yeah, so while I know the kind of style I'm preparing for, we still kind of do have to just be prepared for anything.
Still a little
Um,
bit of unknown quality in there.
yeah, definitely.
How does sort of you get yourself up for something like this? And I mean, you look at the person who does have all the belts in the division.
Hmm.
That's Amanda Serrano. Now we know before that she sort of spoke and said that she's not really interested in fighting you, etc.
Mm.
That's why you have to force yourself into a position, and that's why you take
Hmm.
a fight and wait for the WBC to mandate you. Whether she vacates or fights you is a different story.
Yeah.
Now you're on that path, right? You feel like there's a clear set out path to sort of seize what you want, whether that be the one title, whether that be undisputed, whether that be multi-weight. You want to
Hmm.
now start being tested.
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like, well, to be honest with you, when some uh, posts went out on Twitter about me fighting Perez for the interim, she did actually quote tweet it saying something about being ready. So maybe she does want the fight now. I don't know. We'll see. But what was I going to say? Yeah, for me, it's just making sure that we fight for those belts at the right time. Um, I'm not naive. I know that I have to put in those rounds. I have to get that work and be prepared for anything. So I know that when I fight her, I will be 100% ready for her if that fight ever happens. But I would obviously love for that fight to happen. Like I said, I don't really want to be fighting for vacant titles. If the opportunity's there to fight the champions, that's who I want to fight. I want to be the challenger and I want to come in and be the champion that way. So we will see. We did reach out to a few potential opponents when we thought that Perez wasn't going to take this fight. The likes of Nina Menka, Sarah Mahfood, um, none of them interested in an interim world title fight. So
What
for
do you think
me,
that is?
I I was quite surprised, um, but at the same time, I think it's probably a smart move by them because I think that my style is going to upset a lot of people. And I guess it isn't really a fight many people would want to choose to have with an awkward southpaw who is very evasive and hard to hit and all the rest of it. So um, while I get it, I still think, like these girls have fought the best. Menka's fought Katie Taylor. Mahfood fought Serrano very recently. So that's obviously the level of opposition that we're looking at right now, because we want to be prepared for everything. But it's hard when that level of opposition don't want to take that risk against a 7-0. So yeah, it's just finding that balance. But fingers crossed, I get to fight the champion in September, and then we're hoping to get out one more time before the end of the year.
All right, finally from me then. You talk about Perez and not having loads of tape on her even now.
Yeah.
The thing is, and this is what we're realizing, and the depth in these divisions are starting to grow, right? But where it is fairly still infantile, you almost go from like one extreme to the other. You've got Amanda
Mm-hmm.
Serrano, who's this absolute hard-hitting beast, and we've seen her in wars with Katie Taylor,
Yeah.
etc. And then there's these other girls who are just on the fringe, and there's no real footage of them. How do you know that you will be ready for that step up?
I mean, I guess you don't really know until you're in there,
Yeah.
really. But if you've done everything you can to be the best prepared you can be, to be the best professional boxer you can be, stepping through those ropes and knowing you've done everything you can, then that's all you can really ask for. And I know that when it's my time, I will be stepping through those ropes with 100% certainty that I've done everything possible to make sure that I'm the best version of me going through. And I believe I will be victorious against Serrano or anyone else.
Lastly, I know I said lastly, but on the world of boxing as a whole, Chantelle Cameron, Katie Taylor too, looks to be happening sort of November, December time,
Mm-hmm.
Dublin Island again. Last time out, Eddie said it, a lot of people said it just from the first bell, Katie didn't look right. There was always questions that
Mm-hmm.
were sort of age and time was catching up with her over the years, even in the fights with Bassoon and Serrano, but she always sort of managed to keep the O.
Yeah.
I saw it with Brackhouse. She lost, and then it sort of just happened to be a continual decline. Do you think this is the same with Katie, or do you give her a chance in this rematch?
I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Chantelle and say that Katie had a bad performance, to be honest. I think Chantelle was amazing and did everything she needed to do to win. And I think it's very likely that the same thing could happen again in the rematch. It depends, I guess, a lot on Katie and what she wants to do differently in this next fight. But to be completely honest with you, I think 140 is probably just too big for Katie. And it doesn't matter how good you are. Sometimes if you're not big enough, it's a tough one. But I mean, she's got the time now. She can build herself into a bigger 140. I mean, she didn't look really any bigger at 140 than she's looked in all her fights at 135. And I feel like she was the much smaller girl in the ring on the night. And I think that played a big part in it as well. And I think that would be something that if I were Katie, going into this rematch, I would be wanting to put on a bit of size. I know, like, obviously her greatest strengths are her explosive, like punches in bunches, but I think she needs to have that size and weight behind her to kind of push the bully back. Do you know what I mean? You can't just, she was just getting walked onto the ropes constantly throughout the whole fight.
If she was to face the two back-to-back defeats, do you think mentally going from sort of the pinnacle and the top of the sport, and then sort of like say she
Mm-mm.
did go back down to 135, having to go through 20 rounds and say that it was two back-to-back defeats, would she be the same fighter? It's hard, isn't
I
it?
don't know. It is hard um, because she is getting older as well. She's had a huge career. She had God knows how many amateur fights as well. Like she's been boxing forever. And I think, I mean, there's still big fights that could be made, obviously. If she was to go back to 135 with uh, the likes of Alicia Baumgardner, there's definitely fights there. Whether Katie's still got that same hunger and that same zing about her after two back-to-back losses, I don't know. So, but at the same time, I'm not writing her off in the rematch either. I think if she makes the right adjustments, she does a big strength block. I mean, the fight was still reasonably
Yeah.
competitive. She just, yeah, she. I don't know. It's a hard
Never
one.
is there. Sky, a final message. I don't want to keep up any much of your time this Thursday afternoon, but you've got a lot of fans and supporters, and it keeps growing. Just a final message to all of them.
No, thank you all. Thank everyone so much for tuning into my fights, following my whole journey, everything on social media. I try to keep everyone updated as much as possible. I know I jumped the gun a little bit on fight announcements because I get so excited and just want to tell everyone everything. But I will be out in September. There will be an official fight announcement as soon as possible. I'm waiting the same as everyone else is waiting, but no, thank you for all the support, and I can't wait to keep winning and keep taking out the champions.